Once the meeting happens, it'll happen at some stage, what would the two leaders say afterwards, at which point you'd say, all right, well done, that's what we needed?
Well, I think, we have to have, the US are reviewing AUKUS. I mean, I think AUKUS, and I hope AUKUS will outlive the Trump presidency and Albanese's Prime Ministership and indeed Keir Starmer's Prime Ministership of the UK. That's a really important national security agreement and arrangement, so we need that secured. With the tariffs, we've seen the UK, for example, get an exemption from the 50% on the steel and aluminium, so he needs to get exemptions on those as well. But, there's other nuances to the relationship, and just the fact that they start to develop some sort of personal rapport with a really important national security partner and economic partner is important as well.
So a tick on AUKUS, perhaps, tariffs are a bit of a moving feast, but as long as AUKUS is considered an ongoing agreement that we're not falling foul of the US and the economic agreement intact, and then you'll say the relationship's in good tact at that point?
Well, I'd also be looking for the exemption like the UK got for steel and aluminium tariffs. They got an exemption from the 50% tariff and carve-out. We'd want to carve out on that as well.
Okay. In terms of AUKUS, that might well depend on, according to the coalition, defence spending. Now, you're saying increase spending to more than 3%. Is it incumbent on you to say what you'd cut, though? Because anyone can say increase spending. What spending would you reduce to make that happen?
And Tom, we will do that. I mean, we took to the last election, as you know, we took a commitment that we'd increase defence spending to GDP to 2.5% by the next 5 years and 3% over the next 10 years. And as a responsible opposition, we will give that data, certainly again before the next election. But what we also need to do, this is where the physical meeting's important, Tom. The US is saying we should spend this. The Australian government may well spend, well, we think we should spend less than that. But the important thing we need to sell to the Americans and remind the Americans is we are making a huge commitment through AUKUS of buying infrastructure from them. So a lot of our defence spending is going directly to benefit some of their industries because we're getting access to world-leading technology. But again, those conversations have to be leader to leader, not behind ambassadors, not behind officials, but that's the type of way that Trump deals. And our Prime Minister needs to get in front of him to make that case.
Okay, so on the spending element though, again, as I say, it's easy to say, here's what we'll spend. Anyone can say that. Do you realise the ease of that versus saying, here's what, here are some cuts you can make, here's where we're spending too much money? Because, Anthony Albanese said as well on defence projects, if you just say, here's an increase, that money won't be spent well. That's a fair enough point, isn't it? It's about projects rather than here's some extra money.
Look, absolutely. And again, when we go, and as we did in the last election, and to the next election, Tom, we'll have a very well articulated where we want to lob our defence spending. But, there needs to be efficiencies into defence. It has to be, a sovereign capability, and we need to make sure that we have good defence and money well spent within our country. So, but again, when we're talking levels, we can have, an aim domestically. They may well differ from what the US want. But again, to make that case, this is where the person-to-person relationship's important, and this is where we put the story, because we're paying a lot of money to the Americans and the US as part of the AUKUS agreement because we're getting world-leading defence technology from them. So it's a holistic discussion that needs to happen.
All right. Kevin Hogan, appreciate your time. I must say, where you are, I was almost... Maybe you just pronounce it for me. I always get these ones wrong, but it's you're doing your bit for local tourism. All this rain down in Sydney, it looks beautiful.
No, well, Gorga Beach behind me, Tom. Come up for a holiday. You guys get paid a lot of money. 20 degrees in the water net right now. Whoopi Beach voted this year the best mainland beach in Australia, mate.
Woolgoolga Beach looks lovely. All right, I'll put it on the to-do list. Kevin Hogan, appreciate your time. Thank you.